You're good to go, Laurie.
Oh, good. All right. I'm going to have to not chat in the chat box typing with my fingers because I have a computer key that's stuck and all I'm getting is gigantic rows of backslash. So I'm going to watch that, like keep an eye on it, but I won't be able to contribute there at all. Well, hello everyone that's here. I want to say thank you for joining us tonight. Um, I'm not sure what time it is where you are. There are moments I'm not sure at what time it is where I am. You know that I travel to a lot of different places, and I happen to be in Milwaukee right now. But that doesn't mean that I know what time it is in Milwaukee. So I have a timer, I have a clock, and I have Erin on the other end who is helping me with the technology here. So, Erin, I'm going to play our chime sound and see if you can hear this. Can you hear that, Erin?
Yes, I can.
Oh, that was delightful. Erin is my engineer. So if you have an engineer in your classroom who changes the slides for you, I'm giving her the chime sound for changing the slides. So we've got a couple of things set up here. One of them is a chat room where you can chat and say hello to each other and make comments if you'd like. And the other one is a Q&A section, which is also down at the bottom of your screen. I can read what's going on there, and I'll try to follow that in case someone sends me a note. Erin, if I can't find the note and somebody needs me to be louder or needs me to get back in the screen, can you just pause me for a moment and let me know?
Absolutely.
Okay. There is a Q&A section down there at the bottom also. If you would use that to type in your questions as we go along, that will really help. If the answer to the question fits right in where we are, I'm going to answer it as soon as possible. I may hold off till the end and hopefully we'll have some Q&A time. You can type your questions in the chat piece as well, but if majority of them are in the Q&A place, it's so much easier for Erin to go back and make sure that she has these. All right, so hi, I'm Laurie Clarcq. Welcome. All right. I'm hoping that I can see the screen as well as you can. When Erin asked if I would do a webinar, I had to think for a little bit about what I wanted to talk about. So some of you are aware that I am semi-retired and I've been traveling around the country helping teachers in the classroom and delivering professional development courses. I was offered this amazing chance to be in Austin and to work at an independent school there and teach Spanish in kindergarten through fifth grade to cover a maternity leave for 4 months. It was an amazing, amazing and humbling experience. And I learned an incredible, incredible amount. I think that this could be really helpful for a lot of you if you teach high school and all of a sudden your own little ones are now home. Because I found myself in this same spot, my maternity leave for 4 months. It was an amazing, amazing and humbling experience. And I learned an incredible, incredible amount. I think that this could be really helpful for a lot of you if you teach high school and all of a sudden your own little ones are now home. Because I found myself in this same spot, my maternity leave for 4 months. It was an amazing, amazing and humbling experience. And I Okay, so we had a glitch there. Erin, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so can I just continue from where I am? I didn't say anything all that exciting.
Yes, you can.
Okay, great. All right, I'm going to have you take us to the next slide. All right, when I got there, this is a program that was CI already, and it was really a very simple, it seemed to me before I got there, it was going to be a simple thing. I would kind of slide into this position where they had a curriculum and they had everything lined out for me and they all knew how to do CI and I could just slide in and take over with their curriculum. And then when I got there and looked at the notes, this was my brain. Like this was all I could see. Just rows and rows and rows and rows of options. And it really, really threw me for a loop. Not to mention the fact that, it's a new computer system, it's a new building. I have, 100 new students' names to learn. I need to know the people next to me. It really threw me for a loop for a little bit. So I had to stop and take stock of where I was and what I had, because I know that we all have these options. Every single day, we have these options to use in class, and it can be overwhelming. Ding, ding. So I wanted to start, and yes, this is a blank, this is a blank slide. I wanted to kind of clear all of that out of my brain and find a focus. All right, and the question was, all right, what should I focus on? I had two things I needed to look at. The first were my goals as a teacher, and I just moved my phone over the top of the camera, so I hope you can see me now. What were my goals as a teacher? And then what teacher skills did I need to pull up and use right then, so that we could be effective in the classroom? Once I had an idea of those, the next thing I needed to look at was my students' rules and routines. What did they already have in place that I knew of? And what did I need to put into place so that we could do what we needed to do? Then, once I knew what routines we needed and what rules we were going to follow, I had to think, how can I support my students so that they can do the very best job possible and we can all work together? And then finally, I could go back to that crazy list of options, which was such a blessing, but was so overwhelming for me, to decide which materials are going to help me do all of these different things. So what I've just led you through, it took me a couple of weeks to even realize I needed to do it. So it's helpful to know what's my thought process going to be when I feel overwhelmed or I don't know where to start planning for a group of students. And even though I did this for primary and intermediate level kids, it's the same exact process that I would have gone through, I realized, at the middle school or at the high school. So, goals and skills. My first goal, always, 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 if I'm teaching with comprehensible input, is to make things comprehensible. And maybe it's clear to you now, and it wasn't clear to me at the time, was I couldn't do anything because it wasn't comprehensible to me. I hadn't stopped and made the whole mess comprehensible to me. And I needed to do that because I had all of these gifts in front of me, all kinds of information, wonderful students, a great program, but I needed to make it comprehensible for me before I could do it for the kids. So here's an activity that I will do with students, and I'll just kind of run that through with you a little bit. And we do this in L1 if we all speak a common L1. Half of the group gets this sheet of paper that you see on the side with a half a picture on it and then a blank section at the bottom. And their job is to think of several things that they can say to describe that side of the picture, the side that they can see. They're going to describe that, right? I feel like I'm playing the drums. The other half of the class gets this half of the picture, and their job is to describe what's in their picture, figure out what it is that they can see. Once they pair up, okay, they cannot see each other's sides of the picture, but they describe what's on the top and what's on the bottom. And it doesn't take long before they figure out that these two pictures don't go together. I mean, at first glance, they do. I mean, there's one head and two arms and 2 feet, but when you start talking about specifics like the color blue or where the elbows are, it doesn't quite match up. And that's because a section of the picture is missing. Right? The middle section is missing in this particular part. And so when I show them the entire picture on the board or on the screen, then they get an idea of why things need to be as comprehensible as possible. Because you can make a picture, you can create a visualization in your head from information that you have. But if you don't have all the information, the picture is not going to make sense. And so we need as much comprehensibility as possible. And I make sure that every student at every level, from kindergarten through my oldest adults, understand how important this piece is for everyone. And I have to remind myself too, because often I have all of the picture in my head and I haven't given them enough information for them to understand. So my goal, making things comprehensible. All right, now the skills that come with making things comprehensible, all right, are longer than this this webinar. So I'm going to send you back to some of the webinars that are available through Voces and Teachers Discovery on their YouTube site, so that you can get some of these how to keep things comprehensible and make them comprehended clear. So this one with Gary has a lot of great information. And then I think I've got a couple on here. Yes. So Michelle will lead you through some different things about why comprehensible input is important and how it works. And then the one that I did a few months ago about getting ready for a restart. I mean, a restart is actually a start. So there's a lot of information there too, if you are not sure how to make things comprehensible. There are some basic points that we can go through that are our skill sets, basically, and you may have heard them before. Go slowly, choose high frequency language, pause and point, use visuals. I mean, there's a lot of great things out there to practice. Now, the unspoken question is, how can we make things in class comprehensible in the target language? Now, the program that I worked with, and a lot of primary school and intermediate school programs, are almost immersion-like in that they only or mostly speak the second language to the students. So I had to really figure out, am I being comprehensible in the target language? We are often asked as proof to get students to speak in the target language and to get them to write in the target language to prove that they can actually function in the target language. And most of us are aware that to do that, first, you have to clearly have the skill of reading, and before that, the skill of listening and comprehending in the target language. But in order to do both of those, you actually start to learn to ding, 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 think in the target language. So our very first goal with our students is to make it comprehensible enough that they will start thinking in the target language. Now, we do that a lot with questioning, where they have to answer with signals or where they point. We do a lot with TPR. If you understand, you show me by standing, pointing, doing what you need to do. And we help them learn to think in the target language by giving them yes or no questions. We know that they're starting to think in the target language when they stop asking us, how do you say this? And are actually answering in the target language. The more the students are asking, how do you say this? The more we know they're still thinking in their first language, which is fine. I mean, everyone thinks. We can't stop that. But we want to scaffold them so that they're doing more and more thinking in the second language. Because frankly, if you can think in the second language, you can speak and you can write in the second language. So we're going to ask ourselves, what scaffolding is needed? And the beauty of this, I found, was that I could let go of being worried about scaffolding. I absolutely had to rely on scaffolding or nothing was going to happen. So that could have meant I was using gestures and quick translation for a moment, okay? This means here, doesn't mean nose, it means here. It's like if I make up a gesture, they need to know what the gesture means. I can't assume that they know what it means. If they need a picture, they need a picture. If they need to act it out, if we need to TPR, then that's what they need, and I need to feed the need. So we're constantly asking ourselves with elementary students, what is the need, right, and how can I feed it? Ding! I was just about to try to do it myself. because all of their growth is only going to come if they are listening and what they listen to is comprehended, followed by reading, and if that is comprehended. And if we start reading too soon, then their language is going to start sounding more like their first language than their second one, and they're going to revert to thinking and translating in their first language rather than thinking, comprehending, and moving forward in their second language. So don't feel bad about going slowly. Don't feel bad about scaffolding. Don't feel bad about wait time. Don't feel bad about think time. Those are things that everyone needs at every level. They just need the training to be able to do it. Now, if you want training on some of those really basic issues, what do you mean think time? What do you mean wait time? What is a choral response? Then I almost lost you there. Erin, check in. Can you see me?
Yes, I can see you.
Awesome.
I see you.
I just knocked over even more sentences.
You're keeping us engaged.
The room is going to smell delightful, and I'm going to be very calm. All right. So if you are struggling and wondering what are some of these things I'm talking about, what we want to get you connected with is a program for training for beginners or novices, not beginners or novices in the language, but teachers who are working with CI. And put that in your questions, put that in your comments, and we'll make sure we get you connected because this is a large community of great people. All right, let's see what we've got next here. All right. Okay. So now let's get back. The first set of goals, the first goal actually was making things comprehensible. And the skill set, and there are several of them, and you could spend an entire year taking care of that. And I hope you do because they're super important, is the basic skill set of making things comprehensible. The thing about teaching with comprehensible input, it's like any teaching, nothing occurs in isolation. Why? Because we're teaching human beings, and human beings are just much more complex than that. So we're going to take a look at the second goal here, and it's connected to the fact that we teach those human beings. And this is my belief, and I have some quotes to substantiate it, and what I have seen over and over and over again. But my experience at the elementary school showed me for sure that this is the most important thing. We can teach children using the curriculum that's in front of us, or we can teach the curriculum to the students in front of us. But whichever one comes first is the one that will win. So if you want children to be the winner, they have to be more important than your curriculum. If you want the curriculum to be the winner, then they will come before your students. Whichever one you find yourself focusing on is the one that will come out ahead. Now, I would like to say that it's really easy to focus on the kids first, but it's not. Right? It is so much easier to focus on the curriculum first. But in the end, the results are not what we would want. So let's see where that takes us. Like I told you, I could find several quotes about this. I'm going to ask Erin at the end when we share this. I have this was from Teachers Pay Teachers. It was a download, a free download with a number of wonderful quotes on education. And I want to make sure that gets shared so that you can go to that person's store and see what they have and honor them and perhaps purchase something from them as well, which I did. These are great quotes here. I'm going to share a secret with you that we try not to admit to, but it's very, very true. Teachers are not more powerful than the brains our students were born with. I'm really sorry. I wish it were true. I wish we were, as individuals, more intelligent, more connected, better trained, and more powerful than the brains of that collective group in front of us. But the truth is, ding, ding. When there are a group of their brains in the same room at the same time, their natural instincts are multiplicative. If you are teaching one student and that student has to go to the bathroom, that's a problem. But if you're teaching 30 students and one person has to go to the bathroom, within 30 seconds, all 30 of them will have to go to the bathroom. And then you have a traffic problem, not just a student problem. So what I found is that the younger students have this incredible sort of hive mind, and only one of them has to start thinking, I have to go to the bathroom. They don't even have to say it out loud. They just start thinking, I have to go to the bathroom. And somehow the other students in the room pick up on the vibration, and everyone has to go to the bathroom. It is a really interesting phenomenon to see if you spend most of your time teaching adults or high schoolers. Middle schoolers have it somewhat, but not to the extent that I experienced. The beauty of that, though, is this. Next. All right, need is multiplicative. When one student is getting a headache because there's too much stimulation, that's a message to me that headaches are coming around the room. Fear is multiplicative, and goodness knows we have seen a lot of that in recent times. But if one student is nervous that they don't understand, or if one student is afraid that they're going to be reprimanded or scolded or embarrassed, that spreads like wildfire through the entire classroom. On the converse side, though, joy is multiplicative. It just sometimes takes one student to cross over from worried to excited to get the whole entire room moving in another direction. And I think that we have to give credence to this flow of emotions and instincts that take place in a room of human beings, especially if you are teaching in a room without desks and all of their electronics are turned off and it's just you and your students. The human body's ability to sense what's going on and the brain's ability to sense what's going on is incredibly powerful. And it doesn't end because we said to not do it. Right? It just keeps on going. Laughter, to me, is the best example of something being multiplicative. One laugh from one person can change the entire mood in an entire room. There's something actually physically releasing about laughter. And if you don't believe it, go to YouTube, put in babies laughing, and just try not to laugh while you're watching these little ones giggle. In fact, that's one of my favorite brain breaks. We watch babies and try not to laugh. But laughter is multiplicative as well. Ding, ding. So what is not quite as multiplicative, but can be, is what we really need to work on with our students. Classroom management is a fallacy. It is. We can manage a classroom. We can manage students, and we can prevent students from needing to be managed. But the bottom line is the only person who can control a student is the student. And we need to acknowledge that straight up front. Your responsibility to manage yourself. Now, my job as the teacher is to help you, to scaffold you, to support you in ways so you can learn to do it yourself if you don't already have this skill. So what I found at the elementary school was that it was okay for me to do deep breathing exercises. In fact, it was necessary for me to do deep breathing exercises for everybody in the classroom to come together and focus. It was a wonderful opportunity for me to help students self-calm. It was a wonderful opportunity for me to help students to self-focus and to relax and to let go of worries. There's an enormous amount of social emotional learning that takes place in a language classroom. And it was a beautiful opportunity to accept that that was important and natural and needed to happen. So I will tell you, I've done it before in high schools and I've done it before in middle schools. And there's a little part of my brain that always kind of apologized to the general public for doing this with my older students. But when I see the results in an elementary classroom, when a student looks me right in the eye and goes, just a moment, I need to center. And it works, then I know we're doing something right. So please take a look into some of those courses and ideas and suggestions that are out there to help students learn to center themselves. If your students, and most of us do have students that come in from a homeroom teacher, check in with the homeroom teacher and find out, what did they do in this class, or have the students tell you, what do you do in your class to center yourselves? What do you do in your class to calm yourselves? And almost every early learning teacher has ways to do that in the class. And it's a win-win because we're going to use something they're familiar with. They get to teach it to us, and we get to learn more. So I'm going to just jump in here with a really quick explanation of one that we chose to do. I started it with the kindergartners, and then they went home and taught it, up the chain to their siblings. And so we ended up doing it in a lot of classes. So we started out with 3 elements and with the kindergartners, and the first one was we did strength. So I would say we have the strength of our bodies. All right, so we have strength of our bodies. And then we would each do a plank, okay, and count to 10 or 20 or 30 or whatever number we had chosen for the day. And it was a nice way to get everybody kind of refocused physically. If a student couldn't do the plank, or we didn't want to do those anymore, we might do something different, like an upper body exercise, like pushing your hand into your other hand and then switching, pushing your band, or even a stretch. But that one was strength of body. The second one was, we would say, strength of mind. And then we would do a deep breathing or focusing piece. One that the kids really liked was mountains. And we would start here, and they would inhale. I don't know if you can see my hand, but my fingers down at the base of my thumb. And I'm just tracing my fingers as if I were drawing my hand. And every time we go up a finger, we inhale, and down we exhale. And it was fun for me because I could throw some target language in there. Subimos la montaña, okay. Bajamos la montaña, inhala, exhala. And that was very helpful to get them refocused. And then our third strength, was strength of heart. And then I would ask students to share something that made their heart feel strong that day. And I tried to control that in a very simple way by asking a deliberate question. Tell me one thing that you heard today that made your heart feel happy or strong. And then I would ask for volunteers, and we would take it from there, depending on how much time we had and which grade level it was, because in kindergarten, everyone wants to be the volunteer. But we started every class like that. And after about 4 or 5 days, they would do it. They wanted to start it themselves. And the input became very important to them. That moment at the beginning of class, and they would stop me in the middle of class and say, I think we need to do strength of mind. I think we need to do strength of heart. And it was very positive sort of thing. So don't be afraid to do those at every level, especially right now, because everybody needs that. And if you are doing online teaching, please, even better, because nobody is in that with a room with them oftentimes on the other end to see them. So, maybe they don't want to do deep breathing in your classroom in front of 20 other students, but by themselves at the computer or in front of their phone, it's a great skill for them to have right now. All right, let's move on, because I could stay on this page all day. All right, the next thing we cannot fight, okay, it's a natural instinct, is humor. And my goal here is, in putting students first, we put their needs, we don't necessarily put their needs first, but we don't ignore them and set them aside. We try to learn to work with them. We cannot get past the humor thing. Depending on the last or the grade level that you are with, anything can get them started. And I got kicked out of class in 6th grade numerous times because I couldn't stop laughing. So our goal is to try to work with the laughter at the elementary school or the middle school or the high school instead of against it. Ding! Erin, you are doing a fantastic job. I just want you to know. Erin is running the PowerPoint, she's running the chat room, and she's looking at the Q&A and everybody's tech questions at the same time. High 10 and chocolate if I could give it to you. All right. So to me, there's also a need for self-control. Self-control is also an instinct. People can panic or they can freeze. And then the next thing that kicks in is, what do I do now? So they need to be able to self-control and self-focus. And they know that, and they just sometimes need our help to do it. Ding. All right. And this is the quote that I'm choosing to go with on this one. If you don't know Malala and her story, and I'm sure almost all of you do, this is one of her quotes, that peace is a necessity for education. And perhaps when she was talking about this, she meant world peace or local peace. But I think it's a lot stronger than that. And I think we can use it in a lot more ways. So we could cross out peace and put in a number of different things here. And my first thought is self-control. To a certain extent, if you're not focused and you're not in control, nothing good is going to happen. The next one is trust. If I get myself under control, I need to trust that good things will happen next. A lot of lack of self-control comes from fear. And so we want to make sure that the less fear there is in the classroom, the better. And so that's why we often talk about the classroom being the safest place possible. We all consciously know we want the classroom to be a safe place. What we actually physically do to make it a safe place is a list 100 miles long. So my and again, it's an entire webinar in and of itself. But for you, when I worked with the elementary kids, what they reminded me was this. A safe place is where you can be yourself, where you can say, I'm hungry, where you can say, I have to go to the bathroom, where you can pass gas and everybody will giggle, but not talk about it for the next 6 hours. Where if your dog passed away, you can come home and share the event. More than ever, it is a place where you can be yourself and take chances because you're accepted for who you are and for who you might want to be. Younger children still have a lot of dreams, and it's still important to them to dream and to imagine and to go beyond what they are right now. And every time you allow that in your classroom, you're encouraging them to be themselves and to grow and to accept other people while they do the same thing. Well, maybe that was a ding. Maybe I need a more musical ding. But anyway, my belief is that we all have an instinctive need for peace, for quiet, for safety. And especially in times like now, when things are stressful, we want to make sure we build that in. Now, whether that is playing a song for a few minutes that has no lyrics so that we all just close our eyes and listen, or whether we breathe in or out, or whether we take 2 minutes of coloring time, it doesn't really make a difference, but we know that having that time makes a difference. All right, so let's get back to this point again, all right? Now here we are. Our brains are not more powerful than the brains our students were born with. And the truth is, our kids know this now. 20 years ago, my students really thought I had a brain. Because I had information that they did not have access to. But the truth is, now they all have access to information, and they believe they can actually get it faster than we can. So what good is my brain if their brain is in their back pocket, right? So if they believe that our brains are not important, we have to then be valuable to them in a way that matters. And what I have seen over and over and over again, and particularly in the past 24 hours, is the need for students to be connected. Your brain may not be more powerful than your students. Connection that your students need from you is more powerful than anything you can replace with knowledge. Anything. They need you. Students are craving our support. They need to know we're thinking of them. They need to know they're not alone. And we all need that. And we often forget about it if we are more concerned with getting through the curriculum in the next 3 weeks than we are with getting our students in a healthy place in the next 3 weeks. All right, so what we try to do then is, and elementary teachers know this, and middle school teachers know this, and high school teachers know this, is we need to prioritize the things that the body needs. The body needs play. So we're going to take situations that students are already in or used to be in when they were children, and then try to replicate that in class, where they're in a physical formation, doing kinds of activities that signal their body and their brain, okay, that we're still playing. Because there's a ton of research out there that says what Einstein said apparently a long time ago, that play is the highest form of research for the brain. Play is the trial and error. Play is the fun. Play is all of those instinctive needs that our brain has, and we have to find room somehow, some way, to build that in. And that was so easy for me to forget at the middle school, at the high school. Play became a reward that I gave them at the end of the week or at the end of the period, if they got through the learning that they needed to do. Even though here and here I knew better, I still found myself falling into those patterns. So building in even tiny amounts of playfulness into the day was incredibly helpful. All right. I love this picture. I took it because I couldn't figure out what this young lady was doing. I thought maybe she was hiding. But what happened was she had this beautiful little skirt on that was see-through-ish, but had sparkles on it. And she just wanted to see what the world looked like through her skirt. And to me, this represents absolutely everything that is beautiful about our brains. This is what our brains want. They want to see what if. And everyone does. And if you teach middle schoolers and if you teach high schoolers, you know they are programmed to push the envelope. What if I say that? What if I do this? What if I don't do this? What if I don't say that? They just want to push it all the time. And I really learned watching the little ones, reminded myself that this is incredibly important to be prepared for them to do that and have responses in mind. I don't mind you being curious, but that crosses a line. Interesting. Let's explore that. You have to start being ready for that. And we're going to come back to being curious several times in the presentation, or at least maybe in the 20 minutes we have left. They have a need to move. We can't stop that either. We have needs to move. And yet we forget sometimes that the kids do. The reality of moving is this. We think that kids are distracted by other kids moving. As adults running the show, our instinct is that kids are distracted by other kids moving. And what I've found is that teachers are distracted by kids moving. Kids are used to other kids moving, and kids want to move. And it bothers us way more than it bothers them. And I've had to learn to play with that a little bit. All right. So, this was, and if we can get this to work another time, Erin, we'll try to do that. I just wanted to show different ways that we all can get movement into the classroom. And this was just a little piece of a story asking, and each group had a piece of it. And they couldn't just make up an answer for their block. They had to have motion to go with it. Super easy. All right, let's see what we've got next. To socialize. It's our greatest enemy when we're trying to deliver beautiful, delicious input, and all they want to do is talk to each other. I really know you can't fight that beast. You have to build it in. You have to build in time for kids to socialize, or to at least feel like they're socializing. Those of you who have been teaching online now for more than 24 hours are starting to see that. Flipgrid has become a really important thing for some of my friends and their children, because the kids want to see and hear each other. So one of the things that I found was it was worth every moment that I could build in where they could interact for 30 seconds or 10 seconds during a brain break, or when we were passing out papers or collecting crayons or anything that we needed to do, that those socializing moments were incredibly important to them. Let's see. Review time. All right, here we go. Goal 1, skill set 1, same thing. We're going to make things comprehensible. It's my goal to make this presentation comprehensible, so that's why I'm going back and reviewing. Never feel badly about stopping and going back to the beginning at any time with anything you are doing. I found myself doing that repeatedly at the lower school, and it was helpful. It wasn't a pain. It really helped me to keep on track where I was going. It helped kids refocus, and it helped any time that kids had come in or gone out to keep us as a class going in the right direction. So don't be afraid to start over again. Oh, the digging's on this side. My musical abilities are less than stellar, Erin. All right, goal number 2, focus on our students. They come first. And we have several ways that we can do that. All right, so here are the skills that go with focusing on the students. And the first one is constantly observe and listen to our students, no matter what age they are, in order to be able to adapt the curriculum or use the curriculum with them. Now, the beauty of what a lot of us do is that we're using high frequency language. So almost anything we talk about is the curriculum. However, if there's a certain number of check marks you need to get through for your curriculum, I promise you that anything can be connected to kids as long as you start with the kids first. So let's take a look at that. Listening has never been my strong point. I will tell you, I'm a talker, not a listener, and I've had to really work to listen. I know that I can still be a lot better, and I had to really learn to listen to little ones. The more I learned to listen to them, the more I realized I had a lot to learn. So anything that you can do to help yourself be a listener will model great listening for them. So what I did was I turned what my goals were into my rules for the classroom, because then they became things we were going to practice together, not just me. So my goal to make the students important and to respect them became a rule. And my need to observe and listen became a rule. So not only was I doing it, but I was inviting all of them and expecting all of them and scaffolding all of them to be able to do that as well. And that means repeating things over and over again. And in fact, almost every single time a student started to speak, someone else would start speaking, and I would have to go back and note, observe, and listen. Almost every single time. So that is probably 10 to 15 times a class period, 5 times a day for 4 months, until the majority of the kids were able to do it. And it's worth every minute that you stop and point to the sign and make sure they know that. Now I'm going to get musical. Because the thing is that listening carefully and quietly to get all of the information is not one of our primary instincts, okay? It gets interrupted, and they believe that listening looks like one thing. So here's my group, all right, listening, okay? Looks pretty good. They look pretty controlled. Until you take a section of the picture and you start to break it down. And you can see 3 of them listening, giving all their attention with their eyes and their ears, which is what we would say, give us your eyes, give us your ears. And then we see the girl who's looking down with the green bow in her hair at something in her lap. And then we see the girl who's actually put her head down on the chair and is taking a little nap, I think. And then we have the lovely little one in front who's looking off in some other direction. Yes, that's her. And actually what she was doing was watching her hair bounce back and forth. So let's take a look at the next slide, Erin, because there's some more wonderful listening going on here. Yeah, same picture. And when you zoom in, all right, you can see that 3 kids are totally distracted by something going on the other side of the room. And then there's my little buddy in the front who's got a card in front of him, and he's just having a random old time. But if you stood, 10 or 15 feet away, these kids were absolutely silent, for the most part, facing the right direction. No one's standing, no one's slapping each other. You know, they were doing what looked like, you know, some good listening. But sometimes we have to really remind them what listening means. Listening does not mean looking like you're listening. Listening means you are actually listening. All right. Because it is our instinct, okay, for safety and for curiosity to constantly be looking at the room around us. So while that may make us feel like we have a group of students who can't control their curiosity, we just have a bunch of human beings in front of us. Now, these are our kindergartners in front of us right here, but to me, kindergartners and middle schoolers are kind of the same animal in different sized bodies. And you know, they're all obsessed with bodily functions. They're all obsessed with touching each other. They're all obsessed with making funny noises because they're all human beings. And these are their instincts. So we have to accept them for who they are and do our best to get them refocused, because sitting for 40 minutes at any given time is not natural. We work in a situation that is not natural. All right, so we've got the rules, and we can talk about the rules. You can see a few kids on the side following the rules. And the reason they're following the rules is because the guy up front is showing them something incredibly, incredibly interesting. Not because they know and follow the rules. So for us, there are some skills involved. And our skills, okay, are observe and listen to the students so that we can make the curriculum as compelling and as interesting as possible. Super important. All righty, let's see. Ding, let's go to the next slide now. Oh, I'm just checking my clock. All right. By making our students the center, all right, of what's going on, we're more likely to get them to pay attention. And nowhere is this more clear, to me at least, than in the lower grades. Lower grade teachers do this beautifully. If you don't use jobs, I'm telling you, having jobs in your classroom at every age level is incredibly important. And elementary teachers know how to do it well. If you have not been to an elementary classroom and observed, do yourself a favor and sit in the background in a lesson for one of your own children that's happening online. And that as soon as you get a chance to get back into a building, go and observe a kindergarten teacher or a fourth grade teacher, even for 10 minutes. And watch how they make the students the center of how the classroom runs, jobs being one of them. All right, ding, ding, what have we got next? My wildcats are ready to go. Here's an example from a fifth grade hallway where they just simply asked everyone to bring in all of their animals or pictures, not the animals themselves, thank you, pictures of their animals, and used those pictures for lesson after lesson after lesson for about 4 months. Now, I've seen this suggestion many times in language classrooms, and I can't say it often enough. One great idea can last a long, long time. So this is card talk, okay, to the max. The students brought in a picture, the teachers printed it, and then they were able to use it for lessons over and over and over again. And this was maybe 6 months after they went up, and kids were still stopping and looking at the pictures and talking about the things that they saw in the pictures in the hallway. Ding! Pictures of the kids themselves are always a helpful thing. Many teachers have done this also, and I highly recommend it. If you have students who are reading on their own, they have book recommendations, and there's lots of different ways to get kids to give a recommendation. They can do it verbally, they can do it in writing, or they can do it in a picture. So these students had a written piece that we put up on the board next to the book that they had. The other one is one of my favorites, and that is using student work. Anytime that you have a really creative kid or a kid who has gone out of his or her way to do something that's really comprehensible and usable, I jump on that and I put it under the document camera or Xerox it or take a picture of it and put it in a slideshow in any possible way that I can to use them over and over and over again. We don't have to reinvent the wheel when we have students who invent beautiful things that we can use every single day. All right, because eventually we want them to be able to talk to each other. Ultimately, we want them to talk to other people in the target language and understand people in the target language and get to know other people. Even if they think they already know them, I promise you that when you start really talking to people, you can always find out something new. And that's what I want to model for my students in the classroom. That's why the special person interviews are so powerful in the classroom, so that they can speak to each other. But before we can expect them to get to this level, we have to get them to feel so safe and so comfortable that they're willing to share this information for each other. And the number one way to do that is to make sure that we honor our interactions with our students as much as possible. Whether you like the student or whether you can't stand the student, whether the student adds to the class or takes away from the class, if we can model that that student has something important to share and thank them when they share it, and do that every day, we've done the most important thing we can do. And that is not a lesson I would have learned at the middle school or the high school. That is definitely a lesson that has come to me over and over again in my experiences with the younger kids. All right. I want you to take a look at the room. And there's a message to you here in this room. We model all kinds of things for our students. And I want you to just take a moment sometime and think about the good things you're modeling for your student. I am very concerned about my messiness. I have a whole picture kind of a brain. I always have lots of things going on at once, and I know where everything is, and it all makes sense to me. But other people, sometimes their tension level rises when they're around me, and I have a mess. So I have to be careful of that with my students. And when a student comes to me and says, "Can I straighten up your bookshelf?" instead of being offended, okay, because I feel like they're telling me I'm a messy person, I have had to learn to say, yes. Is that a skill you have? Is that a job you love? Because I don't. And I would love it if you would do it. And let them take the ownership of that. It is helping their comfort zone. It is helping me by letting them do it. And then I have to step back and give myself a break. Because if I create the absolute, perfectly organized, clean, perfect classroom, the message I'm giving my students is that I expect only perfection from them. And depending on where you teach, perfectionism is an incredible, incredible enemy. And I saw the effects of that in kindergartners. And for me to see kindergartners and first graders and second graders breaking down because it wasn't good enough was very powerful. No, let's go to the next one because that's a good one to go to. All right, let's go back to the curiosity because we want to tell kids that perfectionism is not the goal. Curiosity is the goal. And you can't be perfect and curious at the same time. Doesn't happen. Clink. Oh, that was my noise. So goal number 3, encourage curiosity. Say that 5 times for a tongue twister. All right. So you can do that by being curious yourself. Now, not that kind of curious, but yeah, that kind of curious too. The more you model wanting to get to understand things, the more they will follow your lead. Then again, the weirder you are, the more they try to understand you. All right, you're giving them a wonderful opportunity to figure out, why does this woman or man do what they're doing? Piquing their curiosity, putting a hook in the front of a lesson is a wonderful thing to do to get their curiosity juices flowing. An atmosphere to me that encourages learning is one of curiosity, in which they don't come in knowing what they're going to do today, but they come in wanting to know what they're doing today because they are curious about it. Not because they need a structure or a schedule, but because they know that something exciting is about to happen and they need to know what. So, skill number 1, use compelling ideas and information. And how do we know it's compelling? This is where I start going through my PowerPoint faster than I want to. all right, is going to tie back to the beginning by constantly observing and listening to our students. We know that if we listen to our kids and we pay attention to our students, they will tell us what they're interested in. And what we need to do is to try to connect that and bring that in. So watch and observe and ask. Look around, see what you get. Are they talking Pikachu? Now, I know Pikachu is a primary school deal. However, anyone who's been through primary school, who is under the age of 35, has been a fan of a Pokemon. And they all are willing to talk about it, even if they're in high school, and even if they are no longer geeks. It is a childhood piece for them. Think about other things. I'm going to caution you about social media. I'm not going to encourage you to follow students on social media, and I'm not going to encourage you to discuss everything on social media with your students. But it is a venue that, carefully used, all right, can be a great way to get information that is compelling for your students. All right. And then last but not least, use the kids themselves as fountains of information. When you find out anything new about a kid, use it. Ask kids to bring in pictures. Have them tell you stories. What's one thing you have in your backpack that you would never, ever, ever let go of? And have them go and get it and show it and be part of the conversation. Our kids have so much to talk about. We're just gigantic show and tell monsters, actually, which we all are. The thing about show and tell was this. In show and tell, you had a choice and you were interested and you got to share it. So you've got choice, all right? You've got self-interest and you've got sharing all at the same time. All kinds of wonderful things. It was no wonder we all loved show and tell. Now, sometimes though, you notice the picture in the bottom is a little hand holding. Once they trust us and once we've seen their curiosity, sometimes we need to handhold them through some things we think would be interesting. But we can't really take them to what we would find interesting first unless we've honored what they think is interesting. I know it's nice to think that your students love you so much that everything that you love, they will love, but it is not the truth. And your younger students will always, whether you want it or not, tell you the truth. And one of the things they told me clearly was, just because you're interested in it doesn't mean we are. It took a long time and a lot of my interest in their world before they were willing to look at things I found interesting. So whether it's strange food or whether it's a new kind of music, ding, ding. Go, Erin, you're amazing. Or whether it's just a topic or technology or something else that's out there in the world that you think they might be interested in, let's engage them. My caution on this side, okay, is to be careful about your topics unless you are very comfortable with the anxiety level of your students. Students now are more anxious and more prone to panic than at any time that I've seen in my teaching career. And it is not pampering them to be aware of that, okay? This is an issue that's huge for many, many, many students. And just because it may have not been an issue in our day when we were in school does not mean it is not a compelling issue for them. So you have to be really careful about the things that you talk about. Even if you think these are things that kids need to know, and even if you think it is an educator's job to bring them forward, I encourage you, if you think it is at all a challenging topic, go to a counselor first in your building and ask for tips. How do I approach this in a way that will lower their anxiety so that we can learn and grow and not just have an emotional reaction to it? Our counselors are wonderful people, and if you don't have one in your school, get a friend who has one in their school and get them to ask for you because we all need them. All right. Bottom line is, if it's a pleasant experience, we will never forget it. Now, I'm looking at the clock, Erin, and we're getting close, aren't we? All right. Let me zoom down to the bottom on my other computer and see what we've got going on. All right. So, oh, not too much left, actually. So the bottom line is this. We're going to go through these fairly quickly, and so then you can go off and do what you need to do, or come back and watch the end of it later when it is on YouTube, all right, for people to watch. I'm hoping that you'll take some of these slides and use them as reminders for yourself and your colleagues if you need to do that, or parents if they're looking for that. So Erin, what have we got on the next one? We basically are, again, taking a look at encouraging curiosity by using compelling ideas and information, whether it's picture talk. We can click it again because I think there's another one coming. Or something that's ambiguous. Is this child laughing? Is the child crying? Is the child yelling? Asking questions, because that is number 4. There are actually 2 additional goals in this piece, and I think that we can probably just show you what they are by going ahead a couple slides. So if we could click one, there we go. So, and click one more, Erin, thank you, and one more. All right, we've got a summary. Goal 2, skill set 2. Next one, goal 3, skill set 3. Goal 4, encouraging interaction by skill number 4. Oh, that's my timer. One moment, please. Thank you. It got lost in the essential oil debacle. Is asking and answering questions. And you know what? I think that's probably a great place to stop right there, because asking and answering questions is probably another webinar in itself. So goal number 5, really and truly, is this one last thing. Just be yourself and don't expect more of yourself than what you can humanly do in a day. Now and anytime you go back into the classroom, I purposely made only goals, and you should only focus on one at a time. That's all you need to do. One skill at a time, one goal at a time. This is one of those times when it's really important for us to remember that one step at a time, one goal at a time, one friend at a time, is what we need and how we're going to take care of things. So it was wonderful to have you all here tonight, and I look forward to the next time that we get to see each other in person. Erin, is there something you'd like to follow up with?
Well, just thank you so much for your webinar. I love your examples, and you're just, you have an inspiring message. So I really appreciate it. And thank you all for joining us. We will make this available on YouTube in full, probably in a day or 2. And if you would like a participation certificate, I put the link in the chat.
Oh, yay.
Yeah. And we'll have another webinar on Thursday at the same time. So
yay. Now, is that
that's going to be with Lance.
Awesome.
P. His last name I can't pronounce. I'm sorry.
As far as I go too.
But thank you again, Laurie. And I'm sure, it was fun to watch you. So I appreciate it.
I always have more to say than the time I'm given.
Oh.
I told you I wasn't a good listener.
No, it was great.
All right.
And thank you all again. And I will turn it off, and we'll see you guys next time. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.